Welcome to another adventure. This time, I hiked from a mountain pass along a ridge and out to a lookout point high above the Amazon rainforest at 12,000 feet with a bird's eye view of Manu National Park all the way down to 1,500 feet. The only way I can describe this is like being on an airplane. From there, I fight my way through thick cloud forest on a hidden trail down dark, wet tunnels and back-breaking passageways. At any point, the Indiana Jones boulder could come rolling down after me. But it gets worse.
So I just ran into my first group of coca-leros.
Because this trail is used by coca leaf smugglers who are bypassing a police checkpoint. But despite that, famous universities such as Oxford and Cambridge continue botanical research along this same trail. If you're afraid of bears or tend to get claustrophobic, this one probably isn't for you.
Don't know why nobody wants to use a machete.
Hang on to your hats, keep your shoes dry, and be sure not to miss the sunrise. This is Tres Cruces and the Union Trail. Well, good morning. Well, last night was a rough one. Soaked within the first hour, couldn't see more than 15 meters in front of me. And then it was windy all night, which was kind of good because some of the stuff dried out. But you guessed it, not the shoes. You know I hate that. But the good thing is, I've got my coffee and the sun just came out. So let's hit it. So I really only had time to throw the tarp down on this trail just to get out of the rain. Because you can see how the grass is. And I think that I threw it on top of some bear scat. And in fact, with all the wind, the noises, I never thought I would have been saying, hey bear, here in Peru. But I was a few times, but I don't think they came around. There was something else that did some kind of a screech. I don't know what it was. It was something. After a little research, I found out that's exactly what they sound like. So it did come by, but had to walk around because I had the whole trail blocked. This is actually day 2 because I didn't get to the starting point at the Acanaco Pass until 3 p.m. yesterday when it was just dumping rain. So I'm back on the road. I'm back in my Crocs. It really gets to me to have everything soaking wet within the first hour of a hike. Right away, I find some tracks I'm unfamiliar with. So now I've heard a weird sound and I've seen a weird track, so I'm even more suspicious it's a bear. The Andean bear, also known as the spectacled bear, is the only bear species in South America. They can grow 5 to 6 feet long and 2 to 3 feet high, and males can weigh up to 340 pounds. Whatever that is, bear, I don't know. And then some kind of a struggle, and what I think I see here is a hoof. Isn't that right? And then after that, I lose it. So I think they went that way. Further down the road, I find the same tracks, but now it looks like there's 2 of them. They lead me to this water hole where I stop to hydrate. Given the heavy traffic, deer droppings, and bear scat, I'm glad I brought my Sawyer filter and aqua tabs. Now I live in the Andes, but work a few months out of the year in the Amazon. And I think I can see 2 to 3 climate zones right here in front of me. There's the temperate highland Ichu grass on the left and high jungle on the right. It's a land of confusion where green patches are limited to where the moisture collects and the highland grasses where the mountain is wind-cropped, colder and drier. Right along the road, it's clearly subtropical with succulents, ferns, cycads, some flowering plants, and fungus species. I'm walking along no man's land, where temperate and tropical climate zones are on the front lines. Looking back at the Manu Road switchbacks, you can see a little white moving speck, which is a full-size 16-passenger Mercedes Sprinter van. Manu alone has over 1,300 butterfly species, which is double that of the United States. I climb higher still and soon lose most of the greenery. We've arrived. Okay, here we are at Tres Cruces, and they've tried to make this as touristic as possible, but again, there's nobody here. I have the whole place to myself. There's hundreds of parking spaces up here, There's places for tents over here and in front of this building. And behind the building are bathrooms and running water. So I don't have to go fetch water at one of these little lagunas. So we're in good shape. A little friend has a bumpy ride on my Holden tarp configuration, and then a mountain caracara swoops in to check me out. Tomorrow morning, we're going to shoot directly out this way to the east to hopefully watch the sunrise. But with a bunch of luck, because you see how it is. So the Manu road continues through the Abra, and then down the switchbacks and through the canyon, all the way through these mountains here, till it gets flat. Beginning with Patria, Pilco Pata, Atalaya, Salvacion. Dinner time. I almost forgot the pickles. So I'm always eating healthy stuff because I do this Inca Chef dehydrated food business. So I decided I'm tired of it. There it is, chicken cheddar burger with tomato and pickle and lettuce. I can't turn down a greasy, double patty processed chicken cheeseburger, especially when I can find pickles in Cusco right now. McDonald's on the trail. Junk food. And I've got 2 of those. After dinner, I made sure to secure a poncho door to my tarp setup, something I couldn't do last night because it was too wet. I just pitched my tarp on an airplane. In the late afternoon, the moisture came in, but I wasn't cold. It was comforting. And then the Apu Kanya Huay finally showed himself. Apus were mountain deities which were worshipped by the Incas. Tres Cruces gets its name from a phenomenon called El Rayo Blanco, or the White Ray, which happens during the winter when early morning light passes through moisture in the atmosphere, causing a prism and an optical illusion of 3 suns, hence the name Tres Cruces, or 3 crosses. I spent the rest of the day watching the clouds and letting the time pass by, while remembering all of my jungle adventures below and out as far as I could see. And I sat there until the sun went down. The next morning, I woke up early and waited. It first came up through the clouds like a gray disk without light, then exploded. Good morning. With the angle of the sun the way it is, you can really see the transition from the Andes down into the Amazon and the different layers of mountain ranges. And from here this morning, I can see the snow-capped peaks of Ausangate, Cayengate, and Ocangate. Pretty cool. I find deer up at the parking lot, then turn to get one last look at Kanya Huay. I always try to include at least one really wide shot in these movies. I'm in the middle of the screen on the ridge, and I'm going to drop my pack at the bush and then head back to pick up this camera. My shoes are dry and they're back on my feet, just in time for this trail. It quickly turns into a narrow waterway, which begins to get greener and deeper. Well, as you can see, we're in the cloud forest, and I was a little nervous because there's a few offshoots. I wasn't sure I was on the right trail, which is more like a creek than a trail. But as long as I can see that it drops off over here, and it looks like it does the same thing on the other side, and I'm following the ridge line, then I think I'm okay. A little more confident now, I continue down the trail, then take one to the face from a big dragonfly. Since I knew I'd be following a ridge line, I had the feeling that I wouldn't be able to find any water. So I'm carrying 5.5 liters with me, which is enough for the rest of the day and tomorrow morning. Everything else is getting water from the air itself. Ferns, bamboo, and hanging moss are all now hitting me in the face as I head into darker tunnels. Walking along the edge of a cliff on top of loose tree litter means I plan every step.
After crouching down under a series of doorways with a heavy pack, I've now entered a fluorescent green world full of terrestrial and climbing ferns, bromeliads, orchids, blankets of mosses, lichens, and fungi. And the star of the show? An entire forest of tree ferns reaching up to 40 feet high, with thick trunks composed of a mess of intertwined rhizomes which are normally found underground in other plant species. One of my first experiences in an environment like this was probably at the San Diego Zoo. It's called Fern Canyon or Fern Alley or something like that. Definitely worth checking out. I continue down through more narrow passageways until I run into the first signs of research in the area. There are tree tags, temperature and humidity sensors, and girth measuring devices. The trunks are sprayed red to mark the optimal height for measuring the circumference. There are multiple plots marked out with plastic tape. Then I meet up with a couple of Peruvian biologists who invite me over to take part in their humidity and temperature readings. They're here today on behalf of the Andes Biodiversity and Ecosystems Research Group, or ABERT for short, which is a team of scientists from universities around the world who have been doing botanical research here for the last 20 years. I moved down through more cloud forest, and now the tunnels are getting longer, darker, and wetter. At times, there's just enough light to see the floor so you know where you're stepping, and then you lose the light until it comes back. So I just ran into my first group of cocaleros. They use this trail to get around the checkpoint, and it's not cocaine, it's leaves. They grow in their plot, and they want to bring to Cusco or whatever. But they were nice, offered me some snacks. They asked if anybody was up there at the lookout point, so it was cool. Probably see more of them. The coca leaf smugglers, also known as cocaleros, have been using this trail for as long as INACO, the Coca Control Agency, has been regulating the influx of coca. The cocaleros leave the researchers' equipment alone and in place, while the researchers leave the cocaleros alone to smuggle coca. They both coexist without any issues. And I'm here looking for a new tour itinerary. The whole thing's kind of weird. I reach a covered platform, which was built by the researchers years ago, but it's seen better days. Even though it's been abandoned, someone's staying here. So I found the research platform, which is fine for camping with a tent, but I've got my hammock, so I don't have to stay here. And I think the cocaleros are using this as a halfway point to get up the hill, so there might be more staying here tonight. So we're just going to continue on another hour or two and make our own camp. So I'm out of there. The last thing I want to do is share this hard platform with anyone. I'm back in the bush and into more seemingly unending tunnels. I've moved on from hiking to cave exploring. With little to no light at all, you still have to be sure not to step on any rocks or tree roots because you'll slip and fall. And at the same time, you have to watch your head and watch your head and watch your head. It just repeats. When you're in the dark, you focus on the light ahead until you pass the light, and then you focus on the light ahead. But finally, I emerge after what feels like hours. I'm exhausted, and right now, any campsite will work for me as long as the trees don't give way. I've set up a hammock hundreds of times, but never in a forest which is so delicate because it's rotting from the inside out. I had to clear out a bunch of death before feeling confident about my spot. This is the first time ever hanging from a tree fern. To spread the bug net, I use a couple of sticks, and camp is set. I'm calling this Camp First Light because after a series of dark, dank tunnels, this was like the first light I saw.
which was semi-flat.
It's right off the Coca Trail. And finally, it's hammock time, it's movie time, and it's bedtime. Buenas noches. Well, it was pretty cold. In addition to my merino wool base layer, I used a medium weight down sleeping bag, and it wasn't enough. The breeze is coming up from either side of this ridge and then straight up through the bottom of my hammock. So in this case, you would need a liner, a quilt, that goes underneath your sleeping bag in the hammock. In fact, there wasn't much noise at night. Not a lot of wildlife likes it at this level yet. I didn't even really hear any crickets, maybe 1 or 2 species, when normally down the mountain I'll hear like 25 at one time. But I did hear tree frogs, if you're into that kind of thing. They, as far as I could hear, all the way down the ridge and all the way up, they each had their own little pockets, making their own little chirping sounds. So if you're into tree frogs, this is the place to come. So let's get going. While I'm breaking down camp, another group of cocaleros passes by. They were nice. We talked for a bit. You're allowed 1 kilo through the checkpoint, but I think this guy has about 25. There are 600 species of beetles and 800 species of birds in Manu National Park alone. And back on the trail, it's really bad. I was hoping everything would be easy today. I don't know why nobody wants to use a machete. I guess since they're bringing up bags of coca, they can't carry one. I mean, look at this. So I took one to the lip. I don't know if you can see it. I haven't seen it. Because the cocaleros are going one way, always uphill, and then coming back to their plantations by car. So all the plants are going that against the flow. I'm going against the flow. So I took one to the foot, got hung up on it, and did a face plant into another shrub, and I don't know. I'm lucky it wasn't my eye. I think next time I'll bring goggles. Then I have other problems. I guess I'm tired and getting sloppy, but I push through it and find a clearing which reminds me of where I am. That last group of cocaleros probably camped here last night. So my GPS is telling me it's only about a half a kilometer to the road. So how bad can a half a kilometer be? My legs are destroyed, and every step down is giant, and it's killing me. After one last slap in the eye and scraping through a final pitch black hole, I finally climb out of it. And my reward? Wow, I can't get any closer. A screech owl who says goodbye. If you'd like to see either Tres Cruces by car or hike this unique trail, send me an email. See you on the next one.